Hello and welcome to the 8th episode of Athlete's Journey, winning on and off the field, a special podcast series looking at the financial journey of athletes through the eyes of some of Australia's most influential sporting figures. I'm Brent Read, and today I'm here with Athlete's Journey Ambassador Chris Lawrence and former Test cricketer, commentator, General Manager of the Sydney Thunder, Trent Copeland. Welcome, Trent.
G'day, boys. Thanks for having me. One take. You
Great to
have
have you.
nailed it. It's
One
going to be a good
take,
day.
yeah, we'll go one take.
It's going to be a good episode.
Now, Trent, I mentioned all the roles you've played over the course of your life and career. So we might as well start with the cricket journey. Take us into the history of your cricket journey and how you got to become a Test cricketer, I guess.
Yeah, it's a pretty unique one, Brent. It's I was a kid that played every sport under the sun. I grew up in Bathurst in country New South Wales, and I didn't start playing organised cricket until I was in year 6. I was 12 years old. And I was playing with just a heap of mates. A lot of them I'm still mates with today, as it turns out. We won the state championship, the Brian Tabor Shield, that year for Bathurst Public School, and it kind of lit the fire within me that I love the game. And I was playing hockey and tennis and soccer and all sorts of things as well. But I'd always watched on TV, played in the backyard, and aspired to be some of those players. So fast forward many years, and I moved to Sydney at the end of my school, and I was 17, was coming down to go to uni. But at that point, I'd played a few rep games for New South Wales country and things like that, but I was a wicketkeeper and a batsman at that point. I thought I was going to be on to be the next Adam Gilchrist, albeit I couldn't score very quickly or catch that well. But it was the age of 20, I had broken so many fingers and it was affecting hockey. But also in that day and age, it's, we now see the likes of Matthew Wade play in the Australian team as a batter, irrelevant of whether he's a keeper. Josh Inglis plays in the Test team. Those days, I was the third grade wicketkeeper, and unless the second grade keeper was off at a wedding or injured, I wasn't playing the next grade no matter how many runs I scored. So tactical decision on the fingers and the runs to try and get in the next grade. I gave the keeping away, and I took, it was a 6 for 7 in a third grade game. One of the first days I bowled in cricket. We won the comp that year. I jumped second grade for St George, went to first grade, and then we won the first grade comp those next 2 years, 60-odd wickets in both of those years. And I was kind of within 2 years basically playing and opening the bowling for New South Wales the end of that 2010 season. So rapid rise, unique rise, and I guess the message there is kids, if you think you're a wicketkeeper at one point, don't forget about the bowling or leg spin or anything else, or even other sports, because you just never know what might happen.
Let's take the 6 for 7 out of the equation. What was your proudest moment? Because you played 3 tests?
3 tests for Australia, yeah, where every young, slow, medium bowler dreams of debuting in Sri Lanka, in the subcontinent where the ball didn't move off the straight. I think the 2 debuts for me were the proud moments, winning Sheffield Shields, but the debut for New South Wales at the SCG, when I got the call to play that game, I reckon not dissimilar to what you experienced, Chris, if I'm remembering correctly, but I was just a grade cricketer at that point. I wasn't in the New South Wales squad. There was the likes of Brett Lee, Stuart Clark, Nathan Bracken. The list goes on. There was 15 bowlers, I reckon, ahead of me at the start of the year. I get a call from Brian Tabor saying, Trent, we need you to get to the SCG tomorrow to meet Matthew Mott, the coach, and Simon Kadich, the captain. You're going to be playing in the Shield game on Friday against Queensland. I was coaching at the time. I was doing coaching for a living down at the indoor centre at Tarrant Point. And I put the phone down in that moment and just was bawling my eyes out. Yeah, I could still vividly remember it. I told the kids and the family that I was coaching at the time that we had to pause. I had to go call my family and my girlfriend Kim at the time, now wife. Special time for that. But then walking into the SCG change room, that storied, magnificent pavilion, that members pavilion, and calling it my own, like putting my kit bag down in that change room and saying, that's my locker. And then looking around at, some of my teammates at the time, like Simon Kadich that I'd idolised for so long. to put a baggy blue on my head and walk onto the field down the race tingles down my spine still when I get to walk out there. And the same goes for the Australian experience. Nathan Lyon and I debuted in the same test match in Gaul. Our careers have gone two different trajectories. He's the greatest of all time.
Good conditions for him, though.
Yeah. Good. I took a wicket on my second ball in Test cricket, and Nathan decided to take one on his first ball and take 5 for in the game, and the rest is history. But two magical moments that I'll always remember.
That baggy blue moment, think back to when you were speaking about you were in the 3rd grade cricket side as a wicketkeeper and that fast ride. Like, did you ever dream that in only a short space of time that you'd not only be wearing the baggy blue but also making your test debut?
Never. And particularly not as a fast bowler or slow medium bowler, as I often refer to myself. But that day on debut, we were bowling and I didn't take a wicket until lunch. And I was thinking, my first ball bounced twice before the keeper. I'm thinking to myself, how quick can I get out of here? It wasn't going well. But the end of that story was I took 8 for 92 on debut and in the innings, 10 for the match. And I wish I knew that it was only going to be downhill from there in terms of figures. But it was a really rapid journey that I learned a lot through it. Like, it was such a rapid rise that when I actually hit a form slump 3 or 4 years later after I debuted for Australia and got dropped back to Shield cricket, that I realised that I didn't actually intricately know what made me great. So there was this period of I was playing to succeed to get back into an Australian team rather than just remembering to love the game, remembering to go back to the basics that made me so good.
What about the setbacks? You must have had some along the way. That's obviously one of them, I imagine.
Yep. Yeah, selection issues. I had a back stress fracture once in my career, which meant I missed a whole season, which doesn't sound like much. I mean, the seriousness of the injury is a lot, but a lot of players go through a lot of setbacks injury-wise. I was pretty lucky with that, particularly with soft tissue. But that injury came on the back of that period where I'd played for Australia. I was at my, I guess you could say, peak late 20s as a fast bowler. I was playing county cricket as well as playing for Australia recently and a lot of state cricket. So to miss a full year within that period was quite tough. But I would say it was probably more the holistic struggles of any athlete and finding my way through that. That year, though, gave me some of the greatest learnings, and I'm sure we'll talk a bit about that today. I dipped my toes into the water on commentating on ABC Grandstand for that summer. That's now taken me into a journey of it lit a fire within me, a passion about broadcasting and commentating on cricket that I'm now doing every year on 7, which I love so much. So there was a lot of good that came out of it.
It's an interesting journey being a cricketer, right? Because financially can be a big ebb and flow, right? When you're playing for Australia, you can make really good money. Then when you lose that, you can actually drop off a cliff your earnings, right? Like, I imagine the golf now is more significant than it's ever been, more than when you were playing, right? But even back when you were playing for Australia, I imagine that golf between what you earn at your peak and at your sort of lows was really significant, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So that first game I played for New South Wales, you get a match payment for that match. If you play 3 Sheffield Shield matches for New South Wales, you would then get upgraded to the base contract. So that year that I debuted, I got upgraded. So it wasn't just the match payments, but and at this point, I didn't even have my driving license. Steve Smith gave me a lift to my first Shield game because we lived close to each other. I was not ready for it, not only in terms of my head and that little imposter syndrome on are you good enough as a player, but I wasn't ready for it as a person either. So getting my first car, all of those sort of things, it all came in a hurry towards the back end of that year. And it was such an accelerated learning phase for me that I was, and still am now, learning because I don't know diddly squat about finances, really. It's learnings, experiences. We've got
you on here for advice.
Well, thankfully, there has been those learnings along the way, and it's by making mistakes.
Yeah.
So, but just on the financial gaps, I reckon people probably don't understand that say a New South Wales state contract and a BBL contract are completely separate. I think the average earning nowadays for people who have both of those things would be around 150 grand in state cricket alone, even if you don't play for Australia. And the top end domestic players can earn 300 plus just for BBL and 150, 200 plus just for state cricket before you've even played for the national team. So earning capacity in cricket is going through the roof, and that's because the revenues are raising, the opportunities are getting bigger, and privatisation that might come into the BBL will only accelerate that.
Yeah, you spoke about obviously the injury you had, and you're in a form slump, and now the Australian team. Was that the point in time that you thought that, you know, this is not going to last forever, and am I going to get back there? You obviously got into the commentary side of things. Was that the catalyst for making sure you had something as that next step?
Yeah, a little bit. I reckon I'm fortunate that the way I was brought up, and certainly my mum and my stepdad, who have been there my entire life. My stepdad was with my mum when I was just born, and it's been my norm throughout my life, was when I finished school, it was applying for uni, going to uni. So I had an undergrad degree that I was doing when I first moved to Sydney, and I didn't have a great deal of money. Thankfully, my parents were not only supportive of me doing that, but helping me relocate. The living expenses that come with, Sydney and rental properties. It's worse now, but I'm so grateful for that opportunity, because not only did it teach me I got to get my life on track, but also that was a priority alongside sport. So I did an undergrad degree in sports studies at ACPE. And then I went on and did a master's of international sports management after that. For 3.5 years, and then I've done an MBA since. And so study and learning has been a constant throughout my career. Much like footy, it's subsidised through our Players Association, and I'm very lucky for that. But I've always had the ability to think about careers after, because I was never on track for a career. I had to think about what am I doing and how I'm earning money, but also what's next.
Just on that, like I found, I'm sort of in this space as well, and assisting athletes outside of sport. And it's funny you say that. I do find that sometimes it is those high performers are often the ones who struggle, because they're so good at their craft, whatever sport it may be, is that, and they know they're going to have long careers. They often don't think about what's next, and that it comes up to them very, very quickly. And often, it's either those on the fringe or those who have injuries who, realise very quickly that it's not going to last forever, and do prepare, whether it's through education, skills, or their finances, that tend to bounce back post-career really quicker. Do you find that as well? And have you seen that with a lot of the cricketers you played with?
Yeah, definitely. And I think the other part of that is you are living such a great life and chasing your dreams with sport that you think 4 years of study to do a degree, like what else could I be doing to make myself a greater athlete during that time? But I think if there's any message that I've learnt really firmly throughout my career is that being an athlete is one thing, but like athlete is part on field, but way more off field. And way more how you deal with things, what your resilience is like, all of those types of things. So I would say that, me being a great athlete, and that's in my context, not a great athlete in the world of sport, but was, I would say, majorly because of my balance off the field.
What about early on in your career when you were, I guess, scraping to make a living? Like, do you remember any investment decisions you made that were either good, bad, or combination of both? I don't know. But back in those early days, do you remember anything that sort of resonates with you now when you make financial decisions?
Yeah, a couple. One was couldn't help myself when I first got that, those couple of match payments early to buy a car and buy it outright. So it was mine, and I felt like I had an asset. That was a bad decision, and it was an unnecessary one at the time. But you live and you learn. The worst decision that we've made collectively, I guess, along the way, was we bought a first property in the early phase of my sporting career, and we were then selling that to move to a different place that we wanted to buy, and it was kind of that dream place at the time that we really wanted, and it was touch and go whether we could hang on to the original property, and we could have made it work. But in the end, we decided, let's just get that one and make sure we've got the life we want to live outside of that. that was the worst decision we ever made. Not having two properties to allow flexibility in market, capitalize on trends, inflation, be able to have that money coming in, as a rental property or an investment asset. That to me was one that still lives with me now, that if we did that, particularly through COVID and now on the other side, regardless of where we're at, that would have been a really great place to be. We're still in a really good place and very fortunate, don't get me wrong. But having the ability to think about money working for you and assets working for you, as opposed to just thinking about the one that was in front of us and buying that.
I was going to say, how does that frame your thinking now? Is that the way that frames?
Definitely. So I think I would say the biggest thing that we now do is we've also got a family now. So Kim, my wife, was an incredible athlete. She played 74 caps for Australia, captained Australia in netball, played professionally for 20 years. Much better athlete than me, by the way. We now have two kids. Lennon, our eldest boy, he's 5, and James, our daughter, she's just turned 4. So our financial decision-making is now shifted in the last 5 years to what's now, but also what's building their future. So there's a need for us to be creating money working for us, take some risks. Like, our risk appetite has changed positively because we know in this lifestyle that we're living in, and particularly in living in Sydney, that you've got to take some chances, but make sure you're really well informed with that, and there's a passion associated with it.
Did you mentioned obviously before you came into the New South Wales and Australian system really quickly and made some financial decisions that you look back on would have done differently. Did you have any agents, advisors, mentors around you? Again, I know all athletes rely on different people they can go to with advice. You obviously have spoken about your studies, or was it something that you just decided to learn on your own, or was it something that guided you through this process?
Yeah, I'd say I was really illiterate when I first started. I was very simple-minded in terms of having money in the bank, earning interest, trying to own a house and pay off the mortgage were kind of the two things that I had in my mind as, like, make sure I at least nail that. Then I won't be in my mind, then I won't be a failure, or I won't come out the other side of playing sport and being very fortunate and being in a situation where we didn't have anything to save for it. Or show for it. So that has now shifted into, I think, some really good decision making where we're thinking about, and even that agent environment where you would have experienced it as well. It was about guardrails, not about advice, and stopping me make bad decisions. But really, it was my choices, my decisions, my failures that have informed progress. But I think it was just getting on a learning journey. Like, if you don't know about anything, then I would never have the trust to dive in. So things like, even now, EVs and the fringe benefits tax associated with that, and having a novated lease be paid off pre-tax in your salary and salary sacrificing, like all of those things, I had no idea about any of that when I was a kid. And I'm sure that athletes now that are starting their careers, that's not what they're focused on. But unless you understand it, you're never going to make some of those choices because you'll dive in on the things that you trust.
Do you look back and wish you had a mentor to maybe fast track that learning and not so much make the decisions for you, but to assist with that learning? Yeah,
I probably wish I just asked more questions of my teammates, the senior teammates. I had people, particularly like Ed Cowan, for example, and I now speak with Ed a lot in my work capacity, but also with Athletic Ventures, which Kim and I are involved with at the moment on, investing in startups and good decisions around finances. And Ed was a teammate of mine for so long, and we talk about these things in passing, doing crosswords in rain delays or whatever. But both he and Moses Enriquez and a few others made really good financial decisions their whole lives, and I probably just didn't lean in on that enough to feel the conviction on making those choices myself. But we've now been involved with those companies and those startups, and it's done really well for us. But also own a house with a manageable mortgage, crypto, ETFs, all of those sort of things, Bitcoin and stuff that we've tried, tested, and it hasn't always worked out, but we've been exposed to it.
You're sort of in a different space now as well as the general manager of the Sydney Thunder, right? Because you've got a lot of cricketers now under your wing per se, right? Yeah. So how do you provide them with avenues where they can get financial advice? How does that work in terms of as a general manager of a BBL team, having players under your sort of guard, I guess, if that's the right word?
Yeah, well, I think the answer is yes. I have it prominent in my mind, particularly for young players or players that we sign out of a state contracted environment. So say for the Sydney Thunder in the last couple of years, we signed Tom Andrews from South Australia, who's working, not playing for South Australia. Yeah, he's an accountant by trade, and I think about it way more for those athletes than I do necessarily the guys that are fully entrenched in the system. They have professional development managers employed in each state now to take these players on that journey. But ultimately, I'm there to clear the path, provide a connection with someone, talk about something if you're struggling with it, or if it's a car, if it's an investment opportunity, if it's you've got some disposable income that you don't really know where to go with it, there's ways that I can play connector as opposed to providing advice. Yeah.
What would you say, again, you're dealing with a lot of young athletes who might be signing their first big contract, 20-year-old player, for example. If they came to you and said, give me some advice or point me in the right direction, I want to set up my financial future whilst I'm playing, what would be your advice to them?
I think the way these conversations are going, it's more they're coming to me saying, hey, pay me more. And I'll talk to my agent about how to do that. But I think my advice would be using an analogy in sport that if you ask me to go, hey, run down the road for 18 Ks, I'm telling you to go away. If you tell me go play day of cricket and bowl, come off having had a shared goal with teammates, had an aspiration to win a game of cricket, and oh, by the way, you've run 20 Ks doing your bowling loads through 30 overs and fielding a whole day of cricket, I wouldn't have even noticed that I did that. That's the difference to me. And when I talk about finances with people or even my own learnings, is find a way to have passion involved or a genuine love for what you're doing, because then you won't be just completely knocked over by, in my case, running 18 Ks down the road seems like a burden to my day and I'll be sore after it. I didn't achieve anything other than running 18 Ks. If you're going to invest money or if you're going to put something out there that's a risk if you lose it, imagine doing that while you've got a passion associated with it. You will chase it harder. You won't be just knocked back by that first hurdle. You will chase it further. So the advice is probably fuse your passions with the financial choices you make.
What about in terms of advice you might have got over the years? Is there one piece of advice that stuck with you?
Yeah, and it's actually not about money. It's about my time and treating it like money. I figured out over a long period of time that I was a yes man and still am to my core, a yes man and it'll be okay type guy. Take on the next opportunity. I guess a quote that I live by is you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, by Gretzky. That works for me in sport, but also, it works in life. It works in taking on a new job, pushing myself further. But the crux of that is take chances, but think about it deeply. And you really never know where it's going to take you.
It's interesting you said one thing you wished when you were playing was that you leaned on some of the players around you, right? You're a commentator now at 7. Yeah. And I'm sure in that role you're surrounded by some pretty high IQ people who've been really successful in life. Do you speak to them at all about their financial advice or things they may have done, or do you look at them and look what they may have done? Because there's some people there highly intelligent people who, as I said, have done amazing things in life. They're people you can lean on and learn off, I'd imagine. Do you find that?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we spend so much time together over the course of the summer, and even in the playing environment. When I was talking to you before about my playing career, looking around in an Australian Test change room, having earned the first baggy green, look to my left and it's Ricky Ponting, my right's Mike Hussey, Michael Clark, Shane Watson, Mitchell Johnson, these guys are just heroes of mine, let alone being teammates. That's the same now when I'm in a commentary box. And I'm there to provide analysis and comment on the game, but I'm also sitting next to Ricky Ponting and numerous others. Like, who am I to comment? But we spend so much time together analysing the game, talking about the game. But we also spend a lot of time on the road away from our families and a lot of time in hotel rooms where this is the type of stuff that we talk about. You know, what are you up to? It's part golf, it's part, talking about these things. So I reckon the biggest difference, though, is that we're playing at a different scale. So a lot of those guys are, over the course of their career, made a lot more money than I have. But taking those little nuggets or asking questions that are kind of scalable to what Kim and I are looking at and our family.
The other thing I was going to ask you, it's interesting about the cricket now. There's so much money in it with the Indian Premier League. Like, guys are making astronomical amounts of money. Yeah. Do you see that? Do you, when you see that, do you look at them and go, gee, I hope they're looking after that. I hope they've got someone advising them, someone giving them good advice.
Yeah, I think it goes without saying now that the players these days, they're either incredibly well-versed themselves or they have financial advisors. It's kind of and if any athlete's listening to this and doesn't have that help in their life, like, jump at it. And likely if you're a professional athlete, you've got that probably free. And looking at least your direction to say, hey, can we provide some help? So it's probably just taking the call and setting aside an hour to have an initial conversation. But yeah, those guys are earning, Cameron Green's earning $4 million for 8 weeks, and he's copping it in terms of his performance, and the scrutiny comes with it. But the earning capacity over there is astronomical, like you said. But I also look at it a little bit like, in terms of the percentage of revenue, it's not much. So there's room to grow over there in terms of what the teams make versus what the players make. And I just really love that the women now have a WPL, and that players like Beth Mooney now are earning life-changing money, and Phoebe Litchfield and others. So this is an equitable situation, not just a men's thing.
Well, it's only going in one direction, right? I mean, it's only going up.
Yeah. You mentioned obviously the pressure that say someone like Cameron Green is experiencing by not performing and being on the big pay packet. Do you think, obviously, and you spoke about having a balanced life away from sport, is something that helped with your career. Can you see sort of with players that either are working with you with the Thunder or that you've played with that don't have their whether it's their finances or a balance off the field, do tend to struggle more with those pressures?
Yeah, absolutely. Without naming names, I think the obvious scenario is if you attach all of your identity and your worth to performance on the field as a cricketer or any athlete, or even to your job. A lot of people do that where they wake up, their whole motivation is to chase down the job for that day, and then it doesn't go well. Then what next? Like, how do you go to sleep that night feeling happy about yourself? It's tough. And I certainly don't have the answers, but I think the ways you get through those is when you can go, okay, I got a duck today, or I didn't take any wickets, but man, Chris did well, and we won the game. Find enjoyment in that. And then if those things can't be true, finding the enjoyment with family, finding it through hobbies, having genuine passions outside of the game. And then finances is the other one where I've seen this go the other way, where people are too attached to, they're playing professional sport, but the updates on iPhones these days with share prices and, Donald Trump makes a decision on the other side of the world, and all of a sudden your share portfolio has gone down by 25% and you live that emotionally, that's a bad place to be as well. So it isn't all just about diving into finances and having that be your tick box as balance. It's also not being fully immersed in it where it affects your daily mood.
So is there one question we didn't ask that you think we should have?
The only thing that you probably haven't asked is really about the management of the business side of the Sydney Thunder, and the learnings that we talked a lot about personal finances and me as an athlete and choices I make with Kim and my family. But I think also learning through lived experience on, say, managing a $3.5 million budget for the whole club. I'm not just accountable to sign you as a player. It's also about marketing strategy, people, budgets, venue hire agreements, ticket prices, all of those sort of things. So understanding trade-offs is really the big thing. So one choice over here has a flow-on effect over here. Raising a price on a ticket there might also decrease in terms of our attendance. Then our attendance numbers drop, sponsorship might be affected, broadcast numbers might be affected too. That learning and literacy across sort of large scale is so valuable for when you're managing your own things. Simple things like having an offset account versus a savings account and having money work for you on interest rates. Like those things are, I am no expert, but a few of those simple learnings that can be transferable to your personal life. Make sure you don't miss those moments in business or your job or even just watching on from afar.
That's a good note to end on. That's some sound advice. Well, thanks for joining us, Trent. Very enlightening, and stay tuned for the next episode of Athlete's Journey.
Thanks, gents.